Hello and welcome back. Today we're doing Dead Center. If you're new here, this is my little series where I will go through all the Left 4 Dead levels and talk about the level design and the environment art and any little thing I can think of. Just basically breaking down these levels and analyzing them. If you have any comments to leave, anything I might have missed, something you wanted me to talk about, leave a comment below and then I'll do a follow-up video sometime down the line. But yeah, let's get started. So, first, this campaign begins with the world's loudest helicopter. I'm sure you've all been the victim of that many times as it blows out your eardrums. Yeah, it definitely wakes you up if you're a little sleepy, but luckily there's mods that like make it quieter. I highly recommend downloading those. But here we have the first map in the game, the motel. And this map is interesting because it's one of the few maps that have you begin with only pistols and melee weapons. So, I mean, it makes sense because this is a tutorial level. It's the very first thing you ever play. So you probably don't want to overwhelm you too quickly, so they just start you off with some basic stuff. Yeah, this first area, I actually have a lot to talk about with just this first area. First off, can we admire this amazing skybox for this map? Like, holy shit, they went crazy. It honestly rivals the No Mercy skybox. But it's kind of disappointing because you don't really look at it that much. Like, even when you're like walking along the ledges, you're kind of looking forward and not really looking out at here. But let's take a moment and appreciate the artist who went crazy on this. They put a lot of detail out here, and you can see like this highway that goes out here. Maybe there's some connection with the parish there, or maybe it's just a coincidence. You can see like other burning buildings out in the city. I guess that's maybe Atlanta, potentially, like downtown Atlanta. Of course, down below, this is all real, and it's not part of the 3D skybox, all these actual air vents and stuff like that, and yeah, same deal over here, and where is the 3D skybox? Can we find it? Oh, here we go. Nice. So, here you actually see it up closer. Yeah, they actually put like a lot of detail in. There's a lot of vents and miniature trees. It'd be cool to see a level like set out and some of these little business buildings kind of thing. Like, I always liked this little overpass. We kind of see some of that in Dead Center map too, but I always liked I would want to visit this. I feel like this view here feels like a cool view for a level. If someone wants to get on Dead Center remixed at some point. But yeah, moving on. Speaking of areas that you can't go to, I always wanted to go to this area as well. So whoever's making Dead Center Remix, let me go up here, and then let me go in this door, or let me go across here, or something. I don't know. So in versus mode, sometimes you fight the tank in this first area too, and it's kind of a tricky tank. I would say it's one of the harder ones, honestly, because you don't have much room to move. I know competitive configs, they also sometimes will give you tier 1s in this map, but in vanilla versus, you don't got shit. So usually what happens is, usually like bait the tank into cornering one guy, and then everyone just unloads on him and tries to kill the tank as fast as possible. And you can sometimes do little jukes with these like little tricky jumps and try and outsmart the tank. You can even jump on this electrical box here. But overall, very difficult tank. Let's see. So in Left 4 Dead, the Japanese arcade version, there's actually a tutorial map, like a real actual tutorial map that like teaches you how to move and teaches you how to crouch and all this shit, based around a modified version of this Dead Center 1 rooftop. And that's not in the actual Steam version of the game, but I have a video of that on my channel if you want to see it. I called it Camping Zero because it's like kind of a before the first map kind of map. I don't know what to call it, but if you want to see what that tutorial map looks like, check that out. It's pretty interesting. So another interesting tidbit for this campaign is this was actually the last campaign made in the game. So according to some Valve interviews, they actually built the whole game in reverse. So the first map they made was the Parish, followed by Hard Rain, followed by Swamp Fever, followed by Dark
This map is
Carnival,
not good news.
and then the last map was Dead Center. And the reason why they did that,
What's this thing in a cage?
it makes a lot of sense because from a developing standpoint, like you don't know what's going to be in the final game when it comes out. And so you want to build your first level last, because then you know everything that you're working with by that point in development. You know all the variables, you know what weapons are going to be in the game, what items are going to be in the game. And it doesn't really apply so much in this game, because I feel like this game is a bit more straightforward. But in a game like, let's say, Half-Life, where there's a lot of like overlapping mechanics and they build up over the course of the whole campaign. There are very much a lot of benefits to building your first level last, because again, you just know what you're working with and you can introduce those concepts to the player very early on, and you know what the game is. So yeah, it's an interesting little tidbit about this map. Another little tidbit I learned is that this map, the hotel, was originally supposed to be like an insane asylum slash prison kind of thing. According to Chet Falzek, who was one of the developers who worked on the game, who was one of the writers, he said that before Left 4 Dead 2, or at the very, very, very beginning of development, a level designer had built out a prison level, and it wasn't really working, apparently. Like, it was not, like, the flow wasn't great or something like that, and they wanted to still use it in some way, so they wound up turning it into this motel. And it kind of makes sense. Like, you can kind of see how there might be like a prison in this very similar layout. Like, maybe there's these are cells instead of like prison cells instead of hotel rooms. So yeah, I thought that was a really interesting tidbit. If you want to play like an actual prison level, I gotta chill for a second, sorry. Play Back 4 Blood DLC 2, where there is a prison level that you can go through in their jail cells, and you can rescue people and save them. But sorry, I had to do that. But yeah, let's go back to that Left 4 Dead 2 for a second. So you have an interesting little tidbit here. You can see some. I'll let some lore head go into greater detail on this. Maybe Jay's, he knows a lot about this, but you can see a lot of the future levels that are upcoming. Like you see the French Quarter here, which is the parish, and you see kind of the X's, I think, are like places that might have fallen, and you're trying to get to the circle area, which is where the last way to escape is through the military. But don't quote me on any of that. I'm just like shooting off the cuff here. So anyway, moving on. I also like this little billboard here, or whatever you call it, because it's like introducing the boomer, like from like a Steeda perspective. They're like, what is this thing? Let's call it the boomer. And in this map, the survivors are also like trying to figure out what they should call a specialist, which I thought was a nice little touch. So that's cool to see that there's like a quote-unquote official name for it by Steeda, calling it the boomer. Let's see. So another level design tidbit for this type of level. Sorry I'm talking so much, we barely even gotten through the first hallway, but this kind of design, there's like one straight, not even like a straight path, just like a main path, and there's like little offshoots, like go kind of left and right. These are kind of usually called arteries and capillaries, which are of course named after the blood vessels in your body. And it's a pretty straightforward design. You know, you have your main path, which keeps players oriented. They know where to go. There's stuff guiding them through here, like you see that bright light at the end of the hallway, you see that fire lights, you see the exit sign, all guiding you forward. But you have these little capillaries here. They can quickly stop off, grab a magnum, grab pills, grab whatever you find, and you know, get back on your way. So it's kind of the bread and butter for making a Left 4 Dead level, I would say, is to have your arteries and your capillaries. Here we have the classic. Damn it, elevator's out. The death charges happening all the time in versus mode. And there used to be a little exploit you can do here. I'm not sure if the last time update fixed it, where you can like slowly pixel walk down and drop down a few floors and skip all the way to the elevator at the end right here. That was always a fun exploit back in the day. But moving forward, let's find another way. Environmental effects going on here. I love how it makes it feel, levels feels very active. It doesn't feel like a static level like a lot of levels do. Makes you feel like this hotel could collapse at any time, and you gotta get the fuck out of here quick. This area, another very classic choke. I'm kind of surprised that Valve actually made this first part so difficult in the first level of the game, like for versus mode, I mean, because I feel like, for me anyway, you would want to ramp up the difficulty, because by having these death charges so early on, you increase the chance of there being a huge score disparity very early, which increases rage quits and makes people leave. And while this is a very fun choke for sure, it kind of surprised me that they went with this decision and didn't block these. Like, they could have at least done, like, maybe put some railings and then have like a gap in the railing, and you can do stuff with that gap. Yeah, they just like, fuck it. You're gonna get knocked off at every single point along this ledge. So you often see people will try and rush into this room, but of course there's usually a charger waiting here. He wants you to do that. And you have like smokers waiting right there, ready to pull some guy who wanders out too far. But you can dodge the smoker if you hug this wall, but the charger can get you if you hug the wall. So it's like this back and forth kind of thing, which is really fun. And yeah, you can even, so this fire, you can even run through it and take a little bit of damage to avoid dying, which is always an interesting from a versus perspective. So there's another cool strategy you can do here in versus mode, where if you spawn in as a hunter. So first off, there's these doors here that are closed by default, and you can see smoke coming out of them. This one here, and then this one here. But there's a strategy that you can do in versus mode where you can spawn in as a hunter, or you can do it with any other special, but usually hunters use, and you can scratch the door down. And then when you do that, fire will come out and block the survivors. It's not a hard block, they can run through it, but they'll take damage. So it's just this cool little trick you can do. You can also just open the door as well, and that will spawn the fire. So it's a cheeky little way to get some extra damage on the survivors when you're playing in versus mode. This one here as well. So this whole area, not a whole lot going on. There's a couple little areas you can kind of run off right here and loot. Usually some good stuff on these shelves here. Most of the rooms are pretty much basic stuff. Honestly, it's not really worth stopping in, I would say, most of the time. Um, the Bile Bomb can definitely be useful if you need it for like the first event, which is coming up at the end of the elevator. But otherwise, unless you're like really needing like a melee weapon or something like that, I probably would skip these rooms. But something to note about these rooms is there's first off there's some interesting environmental storytelling going on here because this guy died, had some kind of last stand, holding a magnum here. For some reason, this whole room is empty except for this one lamp that's sitting here. But I mentioned this a bit in the Dark Carnival video where there's a lot of good reuse you can get out of a space like this when you're building it, especially from like a professional standpoint when you're making this level as like a job. You want to try and reuse stuff where you can. But I think even in this area, it's very similar to the Dark Carnival Motel. Like I think these are even the same beds that they use in the Dark Carnival Motel and like same AC units and bathrooms. So really good use here. Pretty straightforward space to build. Nothing crazy there. There's a little trick you can do here in Versus as well. I just kind of skipped over a little bit. I talked about this earlier, but I mentioned how you can do the pixel walk out the window and then drop down to a window below you. Like, so, oh, I think you got patched, but you could do it on the infected side. But if you're needing a spawn in versus mode, you can do that by just spawning up there on the first or the top floor or the eighth floor, and then pixel walking, dropping down a window, and then landing here. So you know you could be walking around as a survivor, minding your own business, and all of a sudden the charger drops right next to you, and you're like, "What the fuck? How did he get there?" So it's a cheeky little trick you can do for first mode. So over here we have a very interesting point where you can get another death charge. You see this one it's very common as survivors run into the elevator. You'll often see a charger and smoker spawn either behind this pillar or behind this wall here. Occasionally, even from this room, you might see like a jockey here or a charger here, and then they go for the death charge there. It's kind of nice because it's like this one last chance you have to get like a huge kill before they go on the elevator. Because once you get down there, there's no more death charges, so it's kind of like your last chance feeling. There's another little trick you can do here, or actually you can do it on any part. You could have done it earlier in the map as well, where you just jump out these windows. First you shoot them out, and then you jump down, and your dead body will be down at the bottom, and then your team can defib you later on. It doesn't accomplish anything at all, really. It's just like a kind of a trolly thing to do. And in fact, if you're playing versus mode, you'll lose 25 points by doing that. So I don't recommend it. But if you're having fun with the game, maybe in campaign mode, and you want to just jump out, or maybe you want to take a break and not actually play, and you just go AFK, and then come back when you get revived later on, you could do that. So you could jump down there. That's the end of the map, and then you get respawned later on. Um, I want to talk about this little hallway back here too, actually. This hallway is kind of funny because I remember when the game first came out in 2008, 2009 rather, there was not an invisible wall over these desks. I guess Valve just assumed no one would even try and go back here. But of course, players quickly found out that survivors could jump back here and go all the way back to this back corner back here. So you'd often see people troll by just running back here as a survivor, and there's nothing the infected can really do to you when you're back here. Like none of these doors open, there's not rooms back there. There's no spawns, so a special would have to spawn way back here, crouch, and then jump over, and then walk through the flames, and then get to you all the way at the very end. Meanwhile, you're like shooting them down the whole time, so they would just die over and over, and people would always troll games by doing that until one day Valve put an invisible wall over it. Thank God. um, yeah, let's go into the elevator. So one thing I like about elevators from a level design point of view, and more like a narrative point of view as well, is that it gives you a point of calm, allows you to get your bearings again, heal up if you need to, you know, give your items to other people if they need them. Um, and it also has a good narrative reason because you can get, you can learn more about the survivors. And this part, and in No Mercy elevators, and then also Hard Rain, I believe, as well. Um, you get to hear the survivors just talk to each other and have like normal conversations, and you learn about their backstory and who they are. And I believe in this elevator they start introducing themselves, and Coach is like, "Oh, people just call me Coach," and then Nick talks about. I don't think he actually reveals like he's a gambler or whatever, but anyway, they all just talk about their backstories here, and I always like that moment in games. Um, but yeah, let's open up the door, and this is the world's loudest elevator door, which I don't think is realistic, but it definitely makes a loud sound, which is supposed to attract the zombies. So now this area is actually really cool because when you open the door here for the first time, like imagine you're playing this for the very first time, you're gonna see all this smoke and fire and like chaos, and you might be kind of reluctant to even go out there. You might be like, I'm gonna chill right here and let the zombies come to me. So Bob actually did a cool little trick where you can actually see the glow of the gun even when you're way back in this corner. You can see the glow of the gun there, and it entices you to run out. Um, so you're actually encouraged not to stay inside, and it's just a neat little trick that they did with the glow of the gun there, just to pull you out. And there's sometimes pills that spawn here as well, and maybe a throwable. So it's just a nice trick to try and pull you out of there and make it so it's not you just camping in that thing, and all those zombies running in there, which would have been really lame. Um, it's also technically the first holdout you'll ever encounter in a game. Um, so I thought that was interesting too. And it's pretty quick. It's over within like, a minute, maybe even less than that. It's just like one wave of horde. So it's kind of like an introduction to horde. And this whole area, I think, is pretty cool. Like this whole fiery, burning hotel. I remember when I first played them after the first time, it like blew me away. Because I had been playing Left 4 Dead 1 maps for, a year at that point, and those maps are relatively static. There's like environmental fires and stuff, but this one you can actually see like debris falling from the ceiling. Like you can still see that falling from the ceiling, and the smoke was like clouding my vision up. Like you didn't have that in Left 4 Dead 1, and this whole area felt like this is like next level like map making here, and you really got a sense of like, okay, this game is it was worth the wait, even though it was only a year. It was worth that year wait. Um, but yeah, it was. I always was blown away by this section. And it's still, I think it aged pretty well. The fire looks a little strange, but it's a 2009 game, can't judge too hard. Here you also have, if you run off to the side room, you get your first chrome shotgun as an optional thing. It rewards people for exploring. Moving forward here, we get to the kitchen, and there's this little jump that you do here, and I like that kind of stuff. It doesn't really like if they didn't have this here, you'd just be like running on flat ground, running on flat ground. But they just like were like, hey, you're gonna jump over this, and it's gonna be fun, and it is because it feels like you're jumping like around the fire, like you're making your own ad hoc path through the fire, which is always a cool feeling. And you can actually technically run through this fire as well, if you want to save a little bit of time at a cost of health. Here we have the banquet hall, and there's some cool environmental storytelling going on here. It's kind of subtle and it's kind of hard to see because of all the fire, but you can see there's a lot of beds here. Looks like medical beds that they were using, so probably implying that this building was used as a staging grounds for people who were sick or people who were injured by STIDA. sorry, not injured by Sita, but Sita was using this to take care of them. And it's just like this cool feeling of like you're entering the scene of a crime, like after it happened, and you kind of piece together the details of what happened here. You can even see like this door busted down, like maybe zombies busted through here and then it got to all the people who were just trapped in their beds and couldn't escape. You can see some kind of blankets here as well. Some very cool storytelling. I wish they maybe put some like corpses in here, maybe like in the beds or on the beds. 'Cause it looks a little empty without them, but not a huge deal. So here we have the lobby, and this area is kind of nice because you have been running through these fiery, burning areas. There's so much smoke. It feels like you can't breathe. And then you get to this like breath of fresh air, literally. Um, and also there's cool detail here that they put in of the zombies that spawn up top and then they fall to the ground through the window, which is an awesome little detail. They didn't need to put that in. Like the map would have been fine without it, but it's just the little things that kind of add up. Especially since this is the first map in the whole game that you play, and first impressions literally mean everything. uh, Especially nowadays where there's so many games that you can play. Like you not only have every game that came out this year and last year, but you have decades of other games you can play. So any game that comes out has to really capture your attention in the first level. It has to be like really extravagant. And a lot of developers will put a lot of their budget into the first level or first couple levels of the game, because players, if you look at a lot of statistics on Steam, you'll see a lot of players don't actually beat the game. Like literally, like a small percentage of people actually beat most of the games that they play. It's something like 25%, maybe even that might be generous. Um, so a lot of people will just play the first level, first half of the game, and then just stop playing forever and never come back. So it's so important to get them hooked early on and to really spend the money as a developer at making the first level go crazy, which they did here, with a lot of cool effects and fires and those little zombies dropping out. So very cool touch by Valve. Versus mode, this area really sucks. There's like nowhere to spawn. There's like one, maybe two couple little pole spawns and this kind of couchy thing you can do. Otherwise, it's kind of bad for versus. But it's the end of the map, and you had multiple death charges, and you had the fire. So if you didn't kill them, that's your fault. um, but yeah, I think that about covers it for map one of Dead Center. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next week on map two, the street. See ya.